Story 1. The craziest thing I have ever seen done to a guitar is Stevie Ray Vaughan playing Lenny live. Just purple in the face, dripping sweat, mouth agape, cigarette stuck to his lip, seemingly channeling God himself. Story 2. There are so many good solos it would be hard to pick any specific one to be the best, and best is so subjective. Prince's solo during the live performance of While My Guitar Gently Weeps is an all-time great performance. Story 3. I never feel like this solo gets mentioned, but to me it is just outstanding. I feel like it's sorely underappreciated when the best solos are discussed. Please, if you haven't heard it, check it out. The solo starts at the 3-minute mark, but the whole song is well worth the listen. Story 4. Sorry, I can't provide the content of the track from Echoes, Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii, as it involves copyrighted material. How about I summarize the content instead? Story 5. Jimi Hendrix particularly liked the bit where he sets fire to the guitar, makes an eerie, surreal wail. Story 6. Metallica Unforgiven. I crushed on it hard for a while before I was told the story behind it and eventually watched the video on YouTube. Wild how a masterpiece like that can come from within under pressure. Story 7. Jimi Hendrix. Machine Gun from the Band of Gypsies album. The entire performance is the greatest display of guitar prowess ever recorded, but the 3-minute solo is absolutely transcendental. Dive bombs, explosions, gunfire, and more on top of the immensely emotional runs. It's the epitome of guitar mastery, and it was live. Story 8. Derek Trucks live with B.B. King and John Mayer. I don't think I've heard anyone make a guitar sing this well before. Starts at 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Story 9. Don't dismiss this as a Deadhead thing. Go check it out. Empathic. Runner-up. Down by the River. Neil Young. If I was ever going to teach a masterclass to young guitarists, the first thing I would play them is the first minute of Neil Young's original Down by the River solo. Anastasio explains. It's one note, but it's so melodic, and it just snarls with attitude and anger. It's like he desperately wants to connect. Neil's playing is like an open tube from his heart right to the audience. Story 10. Basically anything from Polyphia, Tim Henson, or Scott LePage. I know they are not the easiest genre to get into, but true virtuosos in every sense of the word. I know it is subjective and there are many more catchy solos out there, but the pure skill they exhibit blows my mind every time I listen to them. Story 11. There are two answers, the mainstream best solo, and then the actual best solo. This post has many good answers for the mainstream best solo, but I have to agree with Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. For the actual best, there's one solo that I just can't seem to play, and it gives me chills every time. It's Jason Richardson's guest solo in the song Aviator by Polyphia. Story 12. Absolutely easily Steve Vai's Tender Surrender on his Alien Love Secrets DVD. Not only technically difficult, it is masterfully executed with a wide range of dynamics, tone, and nuances. I have played guitar for 2 decades now and listened to most guitar heroes on repeat. Nothing else comes close. Story 13. Terry Kath's solo in 25 or 6/4 Live is one of my favorites. He was so underrated. Starts at 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Story 14. I have a few contenders I'd like to submit for consideration. Off the top of my head, this is a non-exhaustive list, and I reserve the right to change it without warning. Bumblefoot, Normal. Dream Theater, Bend the Clock. Buckethead, the entirety of Soothsayer. Elliott Smith, Say Yes. Freak Kitchen, Speak When Spoken To. Van Halen, I don't know, just pick a song. Story 15. Studio version. Stairway to Heaven. Comfortably Numb. Since I've Been Loving You. Hotel California. Live. Sultans of Swing Alchemy Live. Prince, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Hotel California. Story 16. Jerry Cantrell solos are always great, but I've always liked how simple and mellow this solo was. Flashy technical solos bore me. Story 17. Fingerstyle guitarist Richard Smith performing Scott Joplin's Pineapple Rag or The Entertainer. I have listened to all kinds and styles of guitarists for decades, but this guy blows my mind every time. Maybe not a solo per se, but if anyone checks him out on YouTube, they will be richly rewarded. Story 18. I don't even listen to Dream Theater, but the final solo in Octavarium is just fantastic. It is melodic, it serves the song, but also has great technical runs. It is not widely known, but it is my personal favorite. Story 19. Sure, comfortably numb, but at present I seem to listen to Cutting Crew more. Story 20. Lot of Rolling Stone answers in here, but I'm gonna go with the other non-Gilmore guys solo in the Pulse version of Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, being freaking deadly. Story 21. This is a question that is nearly impossible to answer because there is really no measure to gauge how much greater a solo is from another. If I had to give some answers, I would say there is an argument for Free Bird by Lynyrd Skynyrd, Eruption by Van Halen. I am partial to the live version from Live Without a Net, if that counts. Purple Rain by Prince. If I had to choose a personal pick, I would say maybe Theme for an Imaginary Western by Mountain. One of my favorite songs of all time too. Story 22. Regardless of whether you typically listen to country music, Brad's creativity and country/rock crossover style is pretty addictive, and his talent is through the roof. For that, he has won Best Country Instrumental at the Grammy Awards multiple times. Story 23. My Sharona is an underrated classic solo. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac is the only solo I have heard that is amazing while almost being composed entirely of one note. Story 24. Not trying to be cliché, but specifically the live version of Freebird from the 1970s Woodstock, I think, is the most viewed result on YouTube if you search it. The vibe of that entire video is unmatched, in my opinion. Just a bunch of guys probably dying of heat stroke, high out of their minds, absolutely ripping out a classic together, and it's effortless. Story 25. To me, it's a handful of Between the Buried and Me songs. The solo in Selkies probably had the biggest impact on me as a guitar player. To most people, it's probably something along the lines of Purple Rain or Stairway to Heaven. Story 26. Honestly, I really like Slash's Godfather theme solo. Also, the Sweet Child of Mine solo is incredibly impressive. Story 27. Knopfler on Sultans of Swing, Hendrix on Power to Love, Garcia on one of those 1978 Altheas, Prince on the While My Guitar Gently Weeps tribute to George. This is hard, guys. There are probably a dozen that are better, but those are great. Story 28. I know it's not the hardest or most popular, but Angus Young in the studio version of Ride On just speaks to me. Feels like he is talking through that thing. Story 29. Comfortably Numb, Freebird, Eruption, Little Wing, Stairway, and Hotel California are probably getting repeated to death and for good reason. But for my money, Tender Surrender or And We Are One by Steve Vai take the cake. Vai can say more with 100 notes than Yngwie can with 10,000. Story 30. This is so hard. Here are a few of my favorites. Brian May on We Will Rock You must be up there. He's quiet the whole song, comes in, rips the song apart, and ends it. Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe live at Woodstock. Iconic festival, iconic set. Hendrix is a Rushmore guitarist for me. Dimebag, Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. There's a good reason Eddie Van Halen buried one of his original Frankenstrats with Dimebag when he died. The pure aggression is unmatched. Jimmy Page, White Summer Live at the Royal Albert Hall. Made me want to pick up a guitar for the first time. Tony Iommi, Fairies Wear Boots with Black Sabbath. There may be no Pantera without Black Sabbath, who knows? All I know is Tony is the man, the Mozart of riffs. This is so hard. Good question. Story 31. Way too subjective. Genre, preference, era, etc. Some of my favorites. Mean Street by Van Halen. Sweet Child O' Mine by Guns N' Roses. Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. Wake Up by Mad Season. Let's Go Crazy by Prince. Still Got the Blues by Gary Moore. All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. Electric Gypsy by L.A. Guns. So many more. Story 32. Pink Floyd without a doubt. Comfortably Numb. One of my greatest regrets is not having been able to see them live when I had the chance. Story 33, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, and David Gilmour. All your typical responses are correct. I would add Shot in the Dark or Bark at the Moon. I like Jake E. Lee's style. Also, Marty Friedman. He has so many good ones. Pretty much most, if not all, of Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction. Dimebag Darrell 2. Story 34. How am I not seeing Stevie Ray Vaughan at the top? Pride and Joy and Texas Flood, you all. Story 35. Calvin Klein, also known as Marty McFly, playing Johnny B. Good at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance on Saturday, November 12, 1955, at Hill Valley High School. Changed some lives that day. Some may say it altered the space-time continuum. Story 36. For me, I think it's the live version of Veterans of the Psychic Wars by Blue Oyster Cult. Buck Dharma goes off the rails here, and there's actually a video of it too. The whole song is performed amazingly. Story 37. Jimmy Page, Thank You Live in 1971. Basically pick any version from that year, Incendiary. I mean, come on. What a perfect example of listening to your bandmates and playing with them, locking in, and bouncing ideas off each other. The solo is from about 2 minutes and 15 seconds to 4 minutes and 30 seconds in the song. Story 38. I do not know if I would say greatest, but the solo in Tom Waits' Black Market Baby on Mules is what I consider a perfect guitar solo. Every aspect fits the song and album beautifully. It drips with soul and Americana. Story 39, Jimmy. Star Spangled Banner. Though Albert Lee truly cuts loose at 4 minutes and 43 seconds here. Story 40, Blue Sky, Allman Brothers Band. This is what Gibson guitars can sound like at their very greatest. Also, just a glimpse of what amazing things would have come had Dwayne not died. Story 41, David Gilmour's solo on the Wall. It's perfect. It's iconic and instantly recognizable. I'm not even a huge Pink Floyd fan, but that's the greatest solo I can think of. Story 42, Don't Fear the Reaper, has one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard. Blast it at full volume. Also, Steven Wilson, Nick Beggs, and Alex Hutchings in their live performance of Ancestral. Story 43, this is quite obscure but brilliant. An English band called the Swell Maps has a song called Steven Does. The guitar solo is played on a nylon string guitar. A what the fuck moment. Story 44. For me, it's a tie between Time by Pink Floyd from the Pulse concert. It's perfect. Peter Frampton. Do you feel the way I do? Live version from that channel that did a lot of high-definition programs of concerts back when high-definition digital broadcasting was a brand new thing at the turn of the millennium. I seriously wish I had a better source. It's my white whale, along with a live version of I Put a Spell on You by Creedence Clearwater Revival in the 80s. And neither can be found despite over a decade of searching. Story 45. Subjective, but the solo from Rubin on Unknown Mortal Orchestra's The Garden made me sit up and listen, then listen again many times due to its fantastic guitar solo. I couldn't remember paying much attention to guitar solos in the last 10 years, but he plays a classic and complete blues solo embedded in a beautifully repetitious and driving psychedelic song perfectly. I'm gonna listen again now and enjoy. Hopefully one of you does too. Story 46. First 3.5 minutes of the introduction to Cortez the Killer by Neil Young. For sheer mood and context setting to the story Neil tells later lyrically, it can't be matched. He wins it up with a variation on the theme at the end. A very apocalypto vibe 50 years before the movie remake lands this year. I've always just thought the song captured a moment, 2 moments really. Story 47. Danny Gatton on what I'd say, live at Gallagher's Pub. The guy is one of the most amazing, least known artists of all time. Story 48. Got to mention the Road Vikings with the Ballad of Clutch Nixon from 140 for the Far Cry 5 fans out there. Also, Avenged Sevenfold Strength of the World from about 6 o'clock, ending in a rare big band finish. And the song with probably the best riff in solo, Steel Panther's The Eyes of a Tiger solo at 2 o'clock. Story 49. Prince plays the solo to While My Guitar Gently Weeps at the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions. About 3 minutes and 20 seconds in, he starts. The other prominent musicians there are English speakers who learned guitar. Prince is a guitarist who learned English. Story 50. Alvin Lee, Robin Trower, Frank Marino, Richie Blackmore, and my best goes to George Coymans of Golden Earring in Are You Receiving Me? Utterly stupendous guitar playing. Story 51. Life Without You, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Hotel California, The Eagles / Don Felder / Joe Walsh. Mr. Crowley, Ozzy Osbourne / Randy Rhoads. Crazy Aerosmith / Joe Perry. Just to name a few. Story 52. Guess I'm the odd guy out. Tim Reynolds' solo on track 1 of Astral Projection, called Indoctrinate, is probably the reason I wanted a long play record so badly. Ha!